And a happy Thursday to you, Central Georgia. Thanks for tuning in here for a look at your extended forecast. We have rain moving in as of the moment, so we'll break down what we're expecting. Of course, if you're tuning into this later in the day, then the rain will probably be more widespread or it will have tapered off. But we'll go over the timing of our rain as we go throughout the entirety of today, overnight into early tomorrow morning, and then we will wrap up a beautiful weekend forecast that is looking to ensue. But let's talk about your rainfall for the month of December so far to kind of preface everything. You can see the last time we recorded rain was on the 14th. So this is getting into the territory of very likely just about 3 days ago in time. We obviously don't have the 16th or the 17th on this graphic because we've had our fair share of technical difficulties. So if you stuck with us all morning long through those, thank you first and foremost. But also we have seen the resolution of a lot of those issues so far. But we haven't gotten anything in the way of rain really over the past week in time. Our total still just under an inch and maybe about 3/4 of an inch of rain. And then you can see on average, we typically get over 4 inches of rain in December. So we're still trying to find our way to the halfway point of that. And I do expect today's rainfall totals to maybe start to increase that number just a little bit and creep it closer and closer to the 4-inch mark. But we did get a new release of the drought monitor this morning, and it's actually showing a lot of good news. We did see the expansion of at least abnormally dry conditions to areas of North Georgia that were out of those dry conditions whatsoever. But down here in Central Georgia and South Georgia, we've seen the shrinking of an extreme drought, which was once an area of exceptional drought just about 2 weeks ago. And here in Central Georgia, take a look at this. Almost everyone finds themselves in a moderate drought now, not a severe drought where everyone was as of the last drought monitor update. We only find some of our westernmost counties within that severe drought criteria, areas like Taylor County, Macon County, getting into the southwest portion of Houston County, most of Peach County, southern Crawford County, and the western edge of Upson County. Those are the only areas that find themselves in severe drought criteria. So some improvement, something that we didn't really expect, but we will take it and run with it. And I do imagine that these rainfall totals, hopefully, that we have in store for today will be relatively beneficial. It may not allow for at least the worsening of those drought conditions, and it won't allow for the improvement of maybe getting back into abnormally dry territory. So here's the headlines. A messy and a dreary Thursday on tap. Clear and a little bit cooler for your Friday, mainly your Friday afternoon. We do have some early morning rain chances to break down, and then another brief cool down as we go into the beginning of the work week next week. So we'll go over why this is happening, and I'll go ahead and give you a hint. It is going to be courtesy of some frontal boundaries that are moving through. So here's a walk around the quad. It is already a very gloomy atmosphere, plenty of gray up in the sky, and the difference between today and yesterday is the cloud cover is a lot more dense in nature. So you're not seeing any peaks of sunshine. I do imagine most of your temperatures are still sitting pretty close to where they were this morning. And that is exactly what we see, mid and upper 50s for the most part, but a couple of 60s already scattered about the temperature map. 60 degrees in Warner Robins, 60 in Cordele and Rochelle, 61 down in Vidalia. So 61, go ahead and bookmark it. That is going to be our warmest temperature in Central Georgia right now. And we started out, actually, believe it or not, somewhere in the lower 50s. You probably noticed it when you walked outside. Yes, it still was a little bit chilly, something that you needed some light layering for, but it wasn't bitterly and blistering cold like it has been the last 3 days to begin the work week. So we will take that big win, and the cloud cover is a big reason why these temperatures are a good deal warmer. Across the east and the southeast United States, it is looking like a very similar environment across many of our neighboring states. 60 degrees in Montgomery, 70 in Jacksonville, 76 down in Orlando, 70 over in Houston, but we see a whole lot more green color on this current temperatures map, something that we have not gotten a glimpse of over the last couple of days. It has been a story of light blue and some dark blue shades that have been well down to the south, a little bit farther south than say they should be. And taking a look at these wind arrows, you can get a good depiction about where the frontal boundary that's driving through later on into the nighttime hours tonight is currently situated. And right now it's kind of draped across Missouri, going down into Arkansas, portions of East Texas, just on the cusp of Louisiana. That is going to push all of our rain out of the forecast, but until we get there, it is going to be a story of maybe some gusty winds in some isolated spots. Right now, it's not calm everywhere in Central Georgia, but most areas are calm or maybe only about a 5-mile-per-hour breeze. Farther over to the west, we can see some blue shades and some yellow shades indicating some of those sustained winds up to around 10 miles per hour, and maybe even some gusts in some isolated pockets that are going to be up to maybe 15 or 20 miles per hour. But your feels like temperatures are not going to be cooler than your actual numbers. They are reciprocating the exact same numbers, if not the exact same, within a degree of one another. In terms of what the actual temperatures are, you have to be down in the 40s somewhere in order for the winds to influence the feels like temperatures and make them feel even colder. So here's a look at your forecast for today. Warm but dreary. You may notice I didn't show you the almanac data. That is also something we had some trouble with over the last 24 hours. So your average high, it still sits at 61 degrees, and sunrise was sometime very likely just after 7:30 this morning, although we didn't get a very good glimpse of it. But 64 for a high temperature. That's not too far away from what our current temperatures sit at. And the big headline also going to be the front that comes through tonight. That's not going to be what causes our widespread rain chances throughout this afternoon. That is actually going to be the driving force which pushes the widespread rain out of the picture, but it is going to send a line of rain ahead of it. Let's go ahead and flash back to yesterday. We obviously don't have the almanac data on our graphics. However, we have confirmed values from the National Weather Service. We started out with a low temperature of 28 degrees yesterday morning, and we saw an increase of 40 degrees into the afternoon, marking a red box for the first time since this past weekend, but only the third time that we have been above average with your high temperatures in the month of December. So now we move that tally up to 3. I imagine the normal and the above normal box are going to get their fair share of some tallies over the course of the next week, because it is looking to be a fairly warm weather stretch that we do have ensuing. Here's a look at your hour-by-hour temperatures. Not increasing too much, and this meteogram has us peaking somewhere around 60 degrees. I anticipate we get a little bit higher than that, just like we always talk about with this graphic. It typically does underestimate how much that we do warm up as we go throughout the day. And I do expect that maybe even as we go into the evening hours, we could still see our fair share of some warmer temperatures. And just because the sun is setting doesn't mean that the temperatures absolutely have to cool down at that point. We could receive a surge in moisture, and that could lead to a temperature warm up in the later portions of the afternoon going into the evening tonight. So here's your current satellite and radar image. It's already pretty messy in the aspect that you see widespread gray, so plenty of cloud cover enveloping all of central Georgia right now. But we do also see our fair share of some scattered showers. So let's go ahead and break it down from north down to south. Up in our north and northeasternmost counties, nothing in the way of rain. We do see a few spotty sprinkles, maybe some pockets of some steady rain back up near Glasscock County, Warren County, the farther northeast that you go towards the Augusta area and the I-20 corridor. But here in central Georgia, we do see this cluster of some widely scattered light showers, mainly of the sprinkle variety over in eastern Upson County, stretching over into southwestern Monroe County, some sprinkles around the Forsyth area, and then over to the west across Pike and Lamar counties as well. Down in Talbot County, there also is another good cluster of some steadier rain than what you do see in the light green. There's some shades of dark green and maybe even some yellow within that. But we take it down to the south a little bit farther. Most of central Georgia still remains rain-free, but we do see a cluster of not only some light and steady showers, but also some pockets of heavier rain creeping up into the southern portion of Chris County, another patch of sprinkles across Wilcox County, some over there in Dooley County, and over to the east and southeast of us. Doesn't look like there's much rain on that I-16 east corridor. But this is going to be the beginning of a whole lot of rain that is creeping up to the picture. Take a look at what's down to the south of us. That is a lot of rain in southern Georgia, getting over into the western panhandle of Florida, northern Florida. All of this rain down here close to Tallahassee, just to the south of Dothan, just to the south of Albany, is going to continue to move up to the north over the next couple of hours. And that is what's going to lead to our widespread rain chances this afternoon. So Future View is running a little bit ahead of time, but this is also 2 hours out in advance. This is 1 p.m. and it looks like showers are beginning to be more widespread. And once again, some of those pockets of yellow and orange indicating some heavier rainfall pockets. But for the most part, you should just get your fair share of light and steady showers all throughout today. Obviously, this band right here is going to be some higher precipitation rates, and that's not the frontal boundary itself. This is all just moisture from the Gulf that is surging up to the north, and it will continue to crowd the afternoon hours into the early evening time frame. But now that we have this actual graphic working for Future View, the graph model, I think this is more representative of the actual coverage we're going to see, not what I've been showing all morning long on the HRRR model. I think that's been overestimating the coverage of rain, but it does look like almost everyone is going to receive something, whether it's a sprinkle, whether it's a light shower, whether it's steady rain, or it is even going to be a pocket of some heavier showers. And that still is in the picture as we go into evening commute home time right there around 5 p.m., but already beginning to show signs of tapering off, which is a little bit earlier than we have been originally thinking with all of this rain. So it does look like we'll actually see some clearing, maybe still a few spotty sprinkles here and there, but it is going to be a nice forecast as we head into the nighttime hours before the frontal boundary itself starts to push in. So that's going to be closer to the midnight hour where you do see this broken line of some showers, but not necessarily too broken. This is holding together pretty good as it begins its push in from the north and the northwest. There are some pockets of some heavier and some steadier rain. I wouldn't even doubt that there would be a couple rumbles of thunder with this as it passes through during the overnight time frame. But that's the key messaging. It is passing through during the overnight time frame. So take a look at how this fizzles out as it continues to progress through central Georgia, and take a look at those wind arrows. They are a lot longer and they are yellow in color. So we'll have our fair share of some gusty winds with the passage of this frontal boundary overnight into early morning tomorrow. But I don't even know if it's going to extend into this early morning time frame. This is 5 a.m. right here, and a select few areas are still holding on to some showers. However, I do believe most of the rain is out of the picture even before you wake up and make your way out the door. If you do get up earlier in the morning, say around 4 or 5 or 6 a.m., that's where it's still going to have some implications. Mainly farther in our southeasternmost counties, I think the rain gets out of here a little bit earlier, farther up to the northwest, and the skies begin to clear a little bit earlier. So now we take it to 7 a.m. So the big thing I want you to turn your attention to is that there's plenty of cloud cover over to the east, but there are some gaps in that cloud cover. We should maybe see some peaks of sunlight tomorrow morning, but the higher and higher that sun rises, eventually it will settle us into a completely sunny day that we do have in store for your Friday. So 7 a.m. on throughout the rest of the beginning of your weekend or the wrap up of your work week is going to be crystal clear and sunny, but we are still going to hold on to some breezy conditions on the backside of this frontal boundary. But the breeze does steadily subside as we head later in the afternoon into the evening hours on Friday, and then we go into the rest of the weekend. There's no real change with your forecast. Saturday morning, nice and clear. Going into Saturday afternoon, it looks like Future View is still having a little bit of problems, not progressing through Saturday afternoon. However, I can go ahead and tell you that it is forecasted to be a nice and sunny day throughout the rest of your Saturday, and that will take us all the way into Sunday, where we will pick it up with the long-range models. So how much rain are we expecting? Do we have an update to any of these totals that we have seen? It looks like even less rain than what we were originally forecasting. Only a couple tenths of an inch of rain, but some isolated spots will get a little bit more, maybe closer to a half inch of rain, maybe even some localized spots that could see up to 1 inch of rainfall. So consider yourself lucky if you do see this, and right now it does look like that could be possible farther over to the west. Remember that drought monitor I just showed you? Our westernmost counties still find themselves within a moderate drought, so they're definitely going to need the rain, or excuse me, not a moderate drought, an extreme drought. One criteria above a moderate drought. Can't remember what it is in my head, but they still find themselves in drier conditions than the rest of central Georgia, so they could use the rainfall a little bit more than we could. So now taking a look at the winds, we should expect some breezy conditions and some pockets throughout today. You'll obviously see maybe a pocket of some red, and that could indicate some gusts even up to 30 miles per hour in a select few spots. It's not going to be widespread whatsoever. I think some breezy conditions up to 15 to 20 miles per hour are going to be more of the normal across the rest of central Georgia. But some of those isolated pockets of red, make sure that you are tuning into the evening show with David Guerrero later on tonight, and that is going to indicate some gustier winds, and I'm sure he'll be picking apart where those gusty winds are present later on. And then we start to pick up the breeze as we go into tonight, more so overnight in the early morning hours. This is the frontal boundary itself making its passage through. A thin line of red, but widespread yellow surrounding that thin line red. So obviously our fair share of gusts up to 20, maybe 25 miles per hour, isolated pockets where the breeze can get up to say about 30 miles per hour. And it's going to be a pretty breezy morning tomorrow, and your temperatures are going to drop down into the threshold to where the feels like numbers are going to be a little bit cooler, but we'll talk about what those feels like temperatures are going to be like in just 1 second as well. We still hold on to the breeze into the early afternoon, but that does steadily subside as we head into your Friday night. But Friday night, I do expect the temperatures to drop fairly quickly. Even though we only see gusts up to 14, maybe 16 miles per hour, it is still going to result in feels like temperatures even colder throughout Friday night plans. So make sure that you are beginning to bundle up once again. And then that takes us all the way out to Saturday at 2 a.m. Can't get a view of what those winds are looking like because the graph model is still having those issues as it goes all the way out into about the 48 to 72 hour range. But over the next 3 days, the main highlight will be widespread rain throughout today, mainly of the light and steady shower variety, but there will be a few pockets of some heavier rain enveloped within that. We'll get that brief tapering off as we go into the nighttime hours tonight, and then we'll welcome back about a 20% chance of seeing some showers in the early morning hours, but I do believe most of the rain is already going to have moved out as you're waking up and getting out and about. But 44 degrees, that is going to be your morning low temperature for tomorrow. And I do imagine 44 degrees, if we get down that low, we could hang out somewhere in the upper 40s. Regardless, if you are finding your temperatures in the 40s, you pair it up with those breezy conditions, that is going to result in feels like numbers down into the low 40s, maybe even a few upper 30s as you walk out the door tomorrow. And then we'll have some slightly cooler air behind the passage of this frontal boundary. It's not going to be significantly colder like, say, what we saw in between Sunday and into Monday. Afternoon high temperature of 60 degrees as opposed to 64 degrees. But that is saying something because that 60-degree mark will be paired up with crystal clear sunny skies as opposed to a cloudy and dreary 64 that we do have on deck for the rest of today. After we get through the early morning hours tomorrow, maybe even sometime in the morning show, I'm going to take these rain chances off. I'm going to take away the early morning label, and I'm just going to throw a sunny icon on the rest of Friday once that rain has gotten out of the picture, because that's really the only time of the day on Friday that we are looking at rain being possible. But with clear skies and that slightly cooler air ushering in, we are going to really feel the slightly cooler air more so on Saturday morning. A low temperature of 30 degrees. If you pair that up with still some breezy conditions lingering, then of course feels like temperatures down in the 20s are going to be possible, but it doesn't quite look like the gusty winds and the breezy conditions are going to hold on until we get into Saturday morning. And then Saturday afternoon, we begin that steady warming trend, 62 for a high temperature compared to 60 on Friday. Not too much warmer, virtually feeling the same, but we won't have as much of a breeze present throughout Saturday afternoon as compared to your Friday afternoon. So now we go into the long-range models. Let's go ahead and talk about what's in store as we wrap up the weekend. And of course, what all of you probably tuned in for this for, what is Christmas looking like? I'll go ahead and give you a tease. Santa Claus is going to want to wear his shorts as he's coming through central Georgia. But 3 p.m. on Sunday afternoon, we are going to see an increase in cloud cover. And this is actually going to be another frontal boundary making its way through. It doesn't have a lot of moisture to work with, so that's why we don't see any rain chances associated with this front. But what it's going to do, it's going to pass through and it's going to set up a wedge setup for us towards the beginning of next week. So what I mean by that is it's going to usher in northeasterly winds. Those northeasterly winds kind of push that cooler and drier air down into Georgia, courtesy of the Appalachian Mountains, kind of acting as a guiding mechanism. We call it cold air damming. So what that means is that cold air is going to kind of flow like it would on a stream. So when you have a dam, obviously that is preventing water from flowing one way over the other. So that's what the Appalachian Mountains act as. They act as a bit of a dam with that cold air, so it guides it downstream into central Georgia. And that's going to result in the cooler temperatures being farther up to the north and the northeast as opposed to the farther south and southwest that you live. But Monday afternoon is still forecasted to be on the drier side. It is just going to be slightly cooler than, say, what we are going to see on Sunday afternoon. Then we go into Tuesday, still not looking like anything is very impressive in the way of rain. And then let's go to Christmas Eve. During the day, it's looking like a great forecast for going out to church, whatever Christmas celebrations that you do have with your friends and your family during the day before Christmas. And as Santa Claus does make its arrival a little bit later into the night, I don't expect anything but maybe some on and off cloud cover. You will see maybe some of those blue and green shades try to creep into central Georgia, but that's not a very impressive rain chance whatsoever. If anything, we might throw at 10% as we get closer to the date, but that's not really much worth buying over. It's not a widespread rain maker. It would just be a few spotty showers here and there, but I do expect Christmas right now. It is trending dry, but it's going to be a story of the temperatures more so than it is the rain chances. But this is our first look on the long-range models where we can get Christmas Day within view. And I think it looks like great afternoon weather for playing with those toys that Santa Claus does bring you later on in the day. So your afternoon highs for the next couple of days, still a bit of a roller coaster ride. So we're kind of at the top of the roller coaster right now. Obviously, it doesn't necessarily feel like it. I guess technically, if we're talking about the actual high temperatures themselves, then yesterday afternoon was the top of the roller coaster. We see a steady decline, and that's just attributed to the cloud cover blocking the sunshine throughout today. But then there's the slightly cooler air for Friday afternoon. We will begin the steady warming trend that is actually pretty quick by the time we go into the end of the weekend. So going down the roller coaster, going back up the roller coaster, and dropping back down. And I think Sunday into Monday might be the most significant drop we see, but this is nothing compared to what we did see as of last weekend. Saturday, it was 73 for a high temperature. By the time we rolled into Monday, it was 46 degrees for a high temperature. So that is a spread of nearly 30 degrees, not looking at a huge Arctic air mass to move in. It does look like some cooler air is going to be in store for the beginning of the work week next week. So you may have your hopes up. Okay, maybe Christmas is going to be below average, like what you see right here for Monday with a high temperature in the upper 50s. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Morning low temperatures somewhere in the mid 40s throughout today and tomorrow because of the cloud cover. And yes, we did get down somewhere into the mid 40s before the cloud cover got a lot denser in nature this morning and then bumped the numbers up into the low 50s. So that cloud cover building in actually warmed our temperatures up before the time we're used to hitting the morning low temperature, which is right there around 8 a.m. in the morning. But we will feel that slightly cooler air on Saturday morning more so than any other time over the next 3 days because we will have the clearing in the skies, and that's going to allow for the temperatures to drop below average, but then hovering right around average as we walk out the door on Sunday of 37 degrees. I know you don't see your average low up there, but you will see it on one of the graphics coming up. And then 35 degrees for a morning low on Monday morning, still going to be a pretty chilly start each day of this weekend with the exception of tomorrow, where it is going to have a bit of a pleasant feel to the air once again. But the Christmas countdown is down to a week. Yes, today is a week away from the Christmas holiday. This is your final notice. Go ahead and get those last minute gifts. I know I will be doing the same this afternoon. But I like showing this graphic not just to count down into the Christmas holiday, but because we do have our average high and our average low for Christmas Day all the time on it. So your average high sits at 60 degrees for Christmas Day, and then your average low temperature, like I said, we don't have our averages on our graphics. It's probably somewhere around 38 degrees right now, but 37 is what it will be as we go into the Christmas holiday next Thursday. So keep those numbers in mind when I show you what's in store. But Christmas over the past 10 years, as you see, it has been a story of a lot of variation on your temperatures. We can go back all the way to 2015, where actually we were recording 78 degrees on Christmas Day, both in 2015 and 2016. But 2016 was a little bit different because we did start out pretty substantially colder than what we did in 2015. But 2015 and 2023, the only two Christmases in the past 10 years, that we have recorded some rainfall. Barely anything back in 2015 and just shy of about 1/4 of an inch of rain back in 2023. But Christmases in recent memory. So we'll go over the last 5 years real quick. 60 degrees on Christmas Day as of last year, 66 in 2023, but 43 degrees and 41 degrees back in 2022 and 2020. You may remember 2022, that's when we had a big cold spell all across the southeast. It resulted in a lot of pipes freezing over. We actually had a day or two, I think it was 2 days before Christmas, where we didn't get above freezing temperature the entire day. So the longer and longer you're below freezing temperature, that's where it can have implications with some of your pipes that are not well insulated. I know I had my fair share of friends up in college at UGA that came back to some flooding in their apartment. So we're not looking at that to be possible, and that is a bit of a downside. I know everyone's rooting for a bit of a colder Christmas, even rooting for a white Christmas, which is not going to happen. Go ahead and throw that idea out of your mind. But 43 degrees, yes, it can have some implications in terms of the pets, the pipes, the plants, those things we always talk about when we get some very cold temperatures. And it does look like back in 2021, so just 4 years ago, we had a high temperature of 75 degrees on Christmas Day. And still, that's not even the warmest Christmas we've seen in the last 10 years. That still goes to 2016 and 2015. So keep that in mind, because we'll pop up your 7-day forecast. It obviously doesn't have Christmas Day on it, but we do have Christmas Eve on there now. And you see I'm forecasting a high of 70 degrees this far out. I imagine it's going to be a very similar story for Christmas Day, maybe even a little bit warmer, around 71 or 72 degrees. So yes, it is going to be a warm Christmas when you compare it to average of 60 degrees this time of year. However, not going to be as warm as areas farther to the west of us, and not the warmest Christmas that we have seen in the last 10 years, let alone the last 5 years. So yes, it is going to be on the warmer side. However, we have had this before, and if you lived in central Georgia for quite a while, you know we've even had some Christmas that have flirted with 80 degrees, like we were talking about 2015 and 2016. But I have high confidence that it is going to be above average for Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. But 70 degrees in the afternoon, still really nothing to complain about. Yes, it does feel warm compared to what we have throughout the rest of your 7-day forecast. However, this is a very pleasant environment. You can just wear some shorts maybe and a long sleeve t-shirt and get away with that as your outfit throughout the afternoon on Christmas Day. So it will be a pleasant environment outside. I'm not predicting anything in the way of rain chances. So on the warmer side, but it is forecasted to be a dry Christmas as of right now. Let's go over the first part of your 7-day forecast, where of course today and early morning tomorrow are going to be the main talking points with those widespread rain chances and still a few showers into the early morning hours tomorrow. And then after that, like I said, I'm taking the rain chances off, I'm taking the early morning label off, and I'm going to throw a sunny icon like you see for Saturday on the rest of your Friday afternoon. We'll feel the slightly cooler air really throughout Friday afternoon into Saturday morning, and then we will begin a slow warm up as we go into the end of the weekend actually on Sunday, first day of winter. And how funny, we have a forecasted high nearly 7 degrees above average for this time of year. So it is going to be a warm first day of winter, but then we'll get that front to pass through, and it's going to give us that wedge setup for the beginning of next week. 35 degrees for a morning low on Monday, so still pretty chilly. Not the coldest that we have been, of course, compared to the upper teens just 2 days ago, but 58 for a high temperature on Monday afternoon. That's going to be the coolest afternoon that we have over the next 7 days, really maybe even over the next 14 days, because we don't see any signs of another frontal boundary coming through even as we go into Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. But there will be another warming trend day by day between Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday before we start to hit the top of the roller coaster sometime right there around Christmas, maybe going into the weekend after Christmas. So that's what I mean by a bit of a roller coaster ride, continuing to drop down the roller coaster between yesterday, today, and tomorrow, going back up the roller coaster into Sunday, and then Sunday into Monday we see our most substantial drop, but it's still only about 9 degrees for your high temperatures before we go back up the roller coaster once again. And it is looking like a dry forecast for Santa Claus making his arrival. So all you kiddos that are eagerly awaiting the arrival of Santa, be thankful that we do have some dry weather. Maybe a little bit on the warmer side, but the nights are still going to go down into the 40s, so it still will be a tad bit chilly as you walk outside. But Santa isn't going to have to utilize Rudolph whatsoever. There's not going to be fog. There's not going to be rain as you go into Christmas morning. So I think Santa is going to get through central Georgia pretty quickly and maybe even make a bit of an early arrival and soak up some of this warmer air. Probably going to take the pants off and throw his favorite Christmas bathing suit on, because this is some weather that he, of course, is not used to up in the North Pole. But that's where things stand. Above average Christmas is on the way. Going to be a dreary afternoon this afternoon, first and foremost. So we still have about a week away until we get into Christmas. So obviously not really worth worrying about right now. What I would expect is warmer than normal temperatures, not looking at much in the way of rain chances. And really, after we get through tomorrow morning, I think rain chances are going to be a thing that are very hard to come by over the course of your 7-day forecast. But enjoy and soak up that dry weather and that slightly cooler air, but near average high temperatures both Friday afternoon and Saturday afternoon before we finally start to feel a good deal warmer on the first day of winter. And then next Monday will be another taste of some slightly cooler air before we warm up into that Christmas holiday. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be back at 11 a.m. once again tomorrow to preview the weekend ahead.